So I'm a Nigerian transsexual homeless on the street. This part of my recording, whereby my mother's daughters framed me up as crazy, and kidnapped me in Pittsburgh, locked me up in a mental ward in 2001, in Mercy Medical Psychiatric Hospital in Pittsburgh in 2001. Even though I wasn't crazy, I only had cross-eyed. So I came back to New York in 2000 after the hospital released me. And when they found out my mother's daughter was just lying that, and I wasn't crazy, and I had an immigration case then, and lied on me that I was crazy. I didn't have an immigration case, and locked me up in the mental ward. So I would miss my immigration hearing in 2001. So I would get deported. My mother's daughter Bolani had a U.S. passport, and her other sister Flora had a U.S. passport. I didn't have a U.S. passport. And I had an immigration case then. So when I came back to New York to stay with my mother in 2001, by 2002, I went to this hospital where they saw that, where they confirmed that I'm not crazy. They said neurologically it's normal. I was born a male, now I'm a woman. They misspelled my last name. My last name is Olabopo, but they spelled it Olapopo. So they said neurologically it's normal with intact mental status. So, neurologically it's normal with intact mental status. Cranial and nerve speech left right orientation, calculation and logic, and naming is recent memory is normal as well. The cranial nerves are normal, including speech discrimination to whisper, gait, and antenna are normal. So this young man seems to have a breakdown of strabismus causing and alternating estrotropia as the cause of why he's shifting his fixation back and forth or things are jumping. I said, and he needs strabismus surgery, eye surgery, or glasses. So so my mother's daughter was telling me that my eyes weren't crossed, and me thinking my eyes was crossed means I was crazy, and they were just manipulating me to go and see a psychiatrist. So in 2001 I went to see a psychiatrist. Around 2000 in New York, and I told them my mother's daughter told me I was crazy for thinking I have cross eyes, and then that psychiatrist was a Russian doctor. So she said, she doesn't. She said, she looked in my eye and said, I don't think you have cross eye. I think you're just imagining you have cross eye. So I'm going to diagnose you. I'm going to diagnose you as delusional. And I said, can you please send me to eye doctor first to confirm? So that psychiatrist said, no, I don't see the cross eye in you. So in your eyes. I said, sometimes, I was reading online that sometimes people have cross eye that is not so apparent. But I said, but I'm having double vision as well. And I said my eye always shifts off of focus. I said I just want to make sure I don't have any neurological disease. And she was like, no, I think you're just delusional, thinking you have cross-eye. So that's Russian psychiatrist. She has an Eastern European accent. So that's why I think she's Russian. She's on Staten Island. So she misdiagnosed me as delusional. So my mother took that medical report and told her daughters, and her daughters told her to bring me to Pennsylvania so they can lock me up and frame me up as a crazy, violent person and lock me up in the mental ward. So my mother wouldn't have to pay for my feeding while I was in immigration court, and I could just be abandoned and be ordered deported. So my mother tricked me to go to Pennsylvania with her. And when I got to Pennsylvania, her daughter ran me over with a car and called the police on me. The other daughter, the Flora, ran me over with a car. And the other daughter, as I was on the floor, the other daughter Bolani called the police on me and said I had a weapon and the police would come and get me. People, on 636 industry were watching, like, are we acting a movie? Like, what is going on? And they saw the police come and take me away. And they went and locked me up in Mercy Psychiatric Hospital in Pittsburgh until I called my lawyer in New York, Ralph DiPietro, and it talked with the hospital that I do have an immigration case. I wasn't making it up. I wasn't crazy. And the hospital apologized, but they didn't call the police to arrest my mother's daughter. And they told me to go that I should go stay with her till I come back to New York for my case. I told her I wanted to go stay in the shelter. They said, no, you're new in America, and so we just just let it go, forgive your mother's daughter, you know. And that mercy hospital told me to forgive and then I ended up in New York for my immigration case after that. 14 years later, that same daughter, Bolale and Flora, did it to my mother. My mother went to stay with them because the police took me and my mother from on Staten Island in 2010. And Uganda was helping us to try to get the house back. I filed a lawsuit against the police, and the police when I took Uganda dead. I believe the immigration was still monitoring me when I was talking with Uganda. Even though my immigration case was over, I finally had my green card around that time. But they said once they put you on FBI surveillance because of immigration case, the FBI monitors you forever. Even Black Americans like what's his name again? Martin Luther King. They said that they put him on FBI surveillance forever. And there's even Americans, when they put you on FBI surveillance, they put you, the FBI doesn't remove it. So I guess they were hearing Eric Garner telling me he was going to help me with my lawsuit against the police. And they said, they always sell cigarettes. The police want to beat him dead days later. So I had my phone with me as I was talking to Eric Garner in 2014. At the same place where they killed him, I just met him. He saw me with my bags like this. He said it's going to help me. That the police have no right to kick my mother out of our home in that around that time. It was in a basement apartment. The police want to choke him dead. So me and my mother was still homeless. So my mother matched Eric Garner. So the shelter my mother was staying in, they kicked her out of the shelter. Said because they said she has a high blood pressure and they don't want her in the shelter anymore. And she had a US passport at that time, so my mother was crying and she asked her daughters to send her money so she can rent a place. Her daughters said no, she has to come stay with them. So my mother didn't want to stay. My mother didn't want to stay with her daughters because her daughters are violent. They beat her up, and they starve her. So they told her she has to come stay with them. So as soon as my mother got to Pennsylvania, one of the daughters, Flora, she was staying with the daughter who was married to a Black American, Ayinde. So that Ayinde is a U.S. soldier who tried to punch my mother. So when the police comes, the police will tell my mother to that she's the troublemaker. She has to leave the house. So my mother went to stay with her other daughter, Bolale. They said that Bolale started to telling my mother that she doesn't want her either. I was trying to kill my mother, so that they can, because my mother said they were very jealous that me and my mother were suing the police for millions of dollars and they wanted to kill my mother early. That's why they were giving my mother stress so that she could die early and they could get the money as inheritance money. Because the address weren't living in Pennsylvania, the address weren't living in New York with us, me and my mother. They had their own houses in Pennsylvania. So they were jealous that the NYPD evicted my mother wrongfully. And Eric Garner was helping us, and Eric Garner was killed, and Eric Garner's family got $5 million. So so my mother's address was trying to kill her. They were part of a narcotic gang, into an inheritance scam. So my mother said that Flora, who had hit me with a car in 2001, and that Bolale called the police on me to lock me up in the mental ward. My mother said that Flora did it to her again. Also, put my mother in the car and went and crashed into somebody's house because my mother had a heart problem then. And that Flora was hoping that by crashing into someone's house when my mother was in the car, she would have a heart attack and freaking die. My mother said that daughter did it intentionally, but my mother didn't die. So the ambulance was called. And after that, when they saw my mother didn't die, they said that Flora's husband Ayide tried to punch my mother. So it just to scare my mother to death. And the police came and they said my mother was a troublemaker. She has to leave the house. So my mother went to stay with her other daughter, Bolale. And that Bolale was telling my mother that she doesn't want my mother. And my mother noticed that Bolale was using drugs, was moving with a narcotic gang also. So that Bolale would leave snow all over the floor because that Bolale has a house. And my mother was wondering why that Bolale was doing that. Because that Bolale used to work with a law firm as a paralegal and knows the law. So my mother was saying she feels that Bolale was trying to set my mother up so my mother would trip and fall and freaking die so that Bolale can inherit all the lawsuit money. My mother said that Bolale was stealing her properties also, her clothes. And my mother said that was kind of odd because that Bolale, as a U.S. fast forward, was born in America, speaks American English, and has a job. So will still rob my mother, So my mother said that Flora came to visit my mother in Bolale's house and fell on the snow. That Bolale wouldn't shovel, and they had to take her to the hospital. So my mother was like wondering, is this like our daughter's into insurance scam? Because that I'm sure that probably had the home insurance policy. So my mother said she got the shovel out and shovel the snow because my mother didn't want to fall and die also. You know, so my mother said that probably started poisoning my mother with like cancer fish poison. You know, so my mother started having bloody diarrhea, and my mother started having heart attack symptoms. So my mother got on the ground to flee back to New York. While on the ground, my mother said she was about to have a heart attack on the ground in 2015, May 13, 2015. So she told the ground bus driver to stop over and call the ambulance. And so my mother started eating aspirin because my mother is a nursing assistant, so she knows eating aspirin could help control heart attack. So my mother said as soon as she was eating the aspirin, she felt relieved, so she told the bus driver to keep driving to New York because she was afraid she would be taken back to Pittsburgh Hospital and her daughters and the narcotic gang they're part of. They may tell the hospital to kill her. Because my mother saw that her drugs were trying to kill her. You know, so my mother was smart enough to tell the bus driver to keep driving. So the bus driver didn't wait for the ambulance anymore. So drove my mother to New York, and when my mother got to New York, she was checked into Bellevue Hospital. And so my mother, told her daughter she's in the hospital and they shouldn't worry about her. She's going to be fine. My mother said 3 days later, even though she didn't tell her daughter what hospital she was in, the daughter showed up in the hospital. I was telling the hospital to lock my mother up in the psych ward. Say my mother is crazy. So my mother was refusing surgery because this kind of surgery they wanted to give my mother was a stent, and even the U.S. Department of Justice has warned hospitals to stop giving elderly people stents. That stent they would insert it through your mouth and put it in your heart. And they said that stent has side effects, and within 3 years, the elderly people were dying. So my mother believes in God, and she had another heart problem, and she went to a pastor in Nigeria. He prayed for her, and she got healed. So my mother said, when she had a heart problem in 2003, she had aortic dissection. She went to a pastor in Nigeria to pray for her, Pastor Joshua, and she got healed. And she came back to America, and they saw that she was healed. So she told the hospital this time again she wants to go back to Nigeria to pray, and her daughters, told the hospital to lock her up, that she's crazy. She's always been crazy, and they frame my mother up as crazy, even though my mother wasn't crazy. Her daughters know that my mother is a very religious person. She likes to pray, and even she always shares videos of that Pastor Joshua's church with her daughters. They know, he heals people. Prophet Joshua, they know he heals people. She always shows them the video of the healing, and her daughters are Christian also. I decided to play my mother. Her daughters are Pentecostal Christians, so they know Jesus can heal. I decided to play my mother and told the hospital to lock her up, that she's just crazy, believing Jesus can heal her. My mother always take them to church to pray for healing and stuff, And my mother was afraid of doing surgery also, because that surgery, my mother's done research that surgery is a controversial surgery that caused people to die within 3 years or have side effects. And even the U.S. Justice Department is suing hospitals that give that surgery to patients. They said no, because my mother had the kind of condition my mother had, they said it's better treated but with just drugs, and stuff, you know, it's better treated with drugs, So my mother was a member of this church, Pastor Jesus Church. Yeah, he has like 6 million fans all over the world. And he's very popular. People know him. He does a lot of healings. He died. He died some years back now. But he was still alive then. And the controversies around him is some people believe he worships Satan also. But he does a lot of healing. And so my mother wanted to go to his church to pray. And like my mother's daughter played me, lied that I was crazy, and I was imagining I had an immigration case. I didn't have an immigration case, even when I had an immigration case. And in 2001, and I had to call my lawyer to free me, to confirm to the hospital in Pittsburgh that that I did have an immigration case, and the hospital in Pittsburgh said that my mother's daughters are such good liars, that like psychotic liars, that they absolutely fooled the hospital. 14 years later, they did it to my mother while she was in the hospital. They told the hospital, Bellevue Hospital, that my mother is crazy, that they should put her in the psych ward. And my mother got angry while they were trying to put her in the psych ward and died. You know, so our daughters are liars, and I believe they're trying to kill me now, frame me up as crazy, so that they can inherit money. Because I'm trying to sue the U.S. immigration for arresting me and separating me up from my mother. Because the U.S. immigration could have just given me a humanitarian visa when I arrived at JFK Airport, and the immigration. A lawyer that used to work with INS told me that they did tell them around that time that if a permanent resident or U.S. citizen arrives and the child doesn't have a visa, they shouldn't deport the child. They should just give the child a humanitarian visa called parole. That visa is for emergency reason, and it's used to keep a U.S. citizen or permanent resident with their foreign relative. And they didn't give it to me, and they decided to arrest me. So I'm trying to sue the U.S. immigration now. So our donors are aware that I'm trying to sue U.S. immigration, so they're trying to get me killed and frame me up as crazy. So their gang has been hiring people to jump me and get the police to arrest me and lock me up in the psych ward. So they did it to me in 2019 after they killed my mother and stole my green card. Yeah, my passport. My mother was ordering. The U.S. immigration gave me two green cards by mistake in 2008, when my case was over. I had one for myself, and my mother had one for me. So when my mother's daughters killed my mother, Bolali and Flora, killed my mother in 2015, they stole that extra green card for me. I don't know if they sold it, because a U.S. green card, you can sell it for like up to like $40,000. You know, and that is they can be arrested, because the other green card I had for myself, also the police arrested me and stole it from me. So now I don't have any green card. I can't go back to work as a home aide. I'm just out here like a bum. I'm in the cold. You know, so this is what I'm going through. You know, so I'm just out here like a like a like a bum on the sidewalk. You know, so I'm searching for more evidence, but let me go to the part where my mother's daughter, their gang, got the police to arrest me and lock me up, and steal my green card. This was in 2019. So, this was the police choking me. You see them put their nail on my neck. So my mother's daughter's gang, they always follow me around, and sometimes they will attack me, throw my stuff into the train track. So on this day, the gang member was sitting. I was begging for money on Bay Ridge for Avenue, 4th Avenue, and this guy came and hit me in the head. So I was like, why did you do that? I was like, the police camera is recording you. And soon the police arrived. So you are fighting. I said, a guy hit me in the head. He was menacing. I said, and then the police, I believe the police were paid to do that. I said, you're crazy. You're crazy. You were fighting with the guys. I didn't fight with him. I just told him, stop it touching me. I said, he always comes and touches me in a sexual way, touches me in the head and stuff. I said, that guy always comes and menaces me. I said, and I scolded him. I said, I had a verbal altercation with that guy. I said the police camera will record it. And the police said, you're crazy, you need medication. And they choked me and went and locked me up in NYU Psychiatric Hospital. Stole my green card and stuff. So, and at that time I used to criticize Trump also. So I guess, he was aware about my mother's daughter's gang trying to kill me, So they locked me up at the psychiatric hospital. They said the head of that hospital is Trump's friend, or is Kushner's friend. They went to college together. NYU Hospital is friends with Kushner. Kushner is Trump's son-in-law. So, and they choked me and misdiagnosed me with all kinds of mental illnesses, you know, and took my green card for me. So they told me I should go and they didn't want to release me. So I called the Nigerian embassy, I called the Daily News, I called New York Times, so they finally released me, after I put them on blast. And the Nigerian embassy refuses to help me now. I'm trying to get them to give me a passport so I can go apply for a new green card, and they won't give me a passport, they just leave me out on the street. So I'm thinking maybe the Nigerian embassy also, because my mother's daughter's gang, maybe they bribed the Nigerian government that we want this person to be killed on the street, and then we can go sue that this person was crazy because the immigration arrested this person as a child and didn't give them the humanitarian visa that was supposed to give them, and decided to do a court case with this person for 8 years, and that drove this person crazy, and the person suffered mental illness for like 25 years now, or on the street, and is now dead, and now we want to sue for the 25 years of torture. So the Nigerian embassy wouldn't help me either, you know. So the NY psychiatric hospital told me, do yourself a favor. But they finally released me after I was calling the Daily News, New York Times, and everything, So they finally released me and told me, just go apply for disability. I said, no, I'm not going to claim I'm crazy when I'm not crazy. So I've been out here on the street, since then. And now I'm getting jumped everywhere I go. I'm getting jumped. So my mother, our daughter, the gang, I believe they're affiliated with the FBI. I heard that, if someone is selling drugs, the FBI sometimes hires them as confidential informant to set up other people selling drugs. And while they're working with the FBI, they'll have access to surveillance. So I'm still being monitored by the immigration surveillance because I'm not I don't have U.S. citizenship yet. I'm still a permanent resident. So they still, I believe they said the FBI always monitors people that have been in immigration prison forever. So they monitor my phone and stuff. So I believe they're giving my surveillance information to my mother's daughter's gang because I'm getting jumped everywhere and I'm getting arrested by the police everywhere. The police arrested me on November 14th while I was using the bathroom on Chambers Street. They said somebody said I stole a cell phone and I was hiding in the bathroom. And they dragged me out of the bathroom, searched me, and then they said I have to come to court. Even though they couldn't find any cell phone, any stolen cell phone on me. They said while they were searching me, I was screaming, so now they're going to charge me with obstruction of justice. So this is like so weird. So and they choked me on November 14th, 2025. They choked me on 2019 also. So and I believe they're just trying to kill me. So I'm going to try to find a video of them choking me recently on November 14th. So August 14th is my daughter's birthday, Bolali. Anytime I use that bathroom on Chambers Street, the 2 train, I've been noticing these gang members who come into the bathroom with me and tell me, your doo-doo stinks, oh, you're stinking, go kill yourself. I'm like, excuse me, why you gang members always fall into the bathroom to insult me? I said, this is a hate crime, you're going to go to prison. So I would love to go to prison for hating on someone like you. And then one of them said something suspicious. I said, and at some point he said, I called and he said, call me motherfucker. I said, don't say that, my mother is dead. He said, said, fuck your dead mother. She probably died to escape you. I'm like, this is extreme. So fuck your dead mother. She probably died to escape you. So I believe that person attacked me in the Chambers Street bathroom, and days later the police came and arrested me in that bathroom. That person is affiliated with my mother's gang. Because when my mother was alive, she was always trying to escape me because I had an immigration case, she will abandon me everywhere. And for that person to have said that, I believe my mother's daughter told that person that. She was like a Spanish woman. You know, she was a Spanish woman. She said, fuck your dead mother. I said, that's an abuse of the court. You could be arrested for insulting a dead person. I said, under the law in New York, the right of sepulchre, when you saw somebody dead, you can be